Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us again today. I'm super excited to share the second edition of this three-part series with you guys. Once again, I am joined by the wonderful Cynthia Barnes. How you doing, Cynthia?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Doing really, really well. Thank you. So yeah, you guys, for any of you who watched last time, I'd love if you could shoot me a message on LinkedIn and tell me that you did those profile updates that we focused on. Let me know what you did. You can even throw that in the chat right now, actually, while you're watching. Say like, yeah, I learned stuff. I updated my profile. I myself updated my profile. So that's how much I took away from last time. If you guys didn't get a chance to watch last time, we're going to throw a link to that first session in the chat here. You can also just search for it in our YouTube channel. That's kind of the foundation for everything that we're going over in this series. So really vital that you go back and watch that one if you haven't, right, Cynthia?
Yes, yes. If you don't have an optimized profile, it's what we're going to cover today will not be nearly as effective, because what we're going to cover today is the content strategies to get people to come to your profile. If it's not fully optimized, then they're not going to invite you to connect. If you don't get invited to connect, then you don't get an opportunity to convert. So the foundation, just like any house, the good foundation is having a solid search engine optimized profile.
Awesome. So go back and check that out if you have not, or go back and optimize that profile if you have yet to do so.
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear from you guys where you guys are based. If you can throw in the chat where you're coming in, where you're calling in from, tuning in from, and also what you're hoping to take away from today's session.
Yes.
So take a chance to pop that in there. And maybe, Cynthia, you can give us kind of the high level of what we're going to be going over today before we dive in.
Yes, we are going to cover the content strategies that attract so that we don't have to attack our ideal prospect. A lot of people will go and say, I'd like to send messages and try to sell my way to business. My experience has been that when we try to sell, people get defensive. And after all, nobody likes to be sold to, but everybody likes to buy. So as Mary Kay used to say, it's better to attract, not attack. So that's what we're going to cover today.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we've got some people coming in from Istanbul, Turkey, Cincinnati, Romania. Really, really wide reach today. That's super exciting.
So Beth is in South Carolina. I'll be in your area in Myrtle Beach in about a month on my honeymoon. Sandra, I used to live in Cincinnati, worked for a company called TQL, and lived in the Norwood area. So I'm quite familiar with Cincinnati, good stomping grounds. Where's everybody else from?
Yeah, we'd love to hear. And remember, if you have anything particular that you'd like to take away from today, feel free to drop that in the chat as well.
Yes, yes. So I'd like to go ahead and get started if you're ready, Sarah. We've got a lot to cover. So I hope everyone brought their A game, their listening ears, as they used to say to the kindergartners, as well as pen and paper so that they can take notes.
Sounds great. Take it away, Cynthia.
All right, sounds good. Let me go ahead and hopefully I can share my screen. I can. All right, so we are starting with content strategies for sales professionals. All right. So the problem, creating social media content that receives low or no engagement. There's nothing worse than putting a post on LinkedIn or Facebook. I speak of LinkedIn because that's our primary platform for NAWSP. And it's like crickets, no engagement. And it's almost like you posted it for nothing. Number two is producing content that doesn't move your buyer through the sales funnel. And number three is not knowing what to post. And I hear this all the time. So the solutions are, number one, we're going to discover how to map the customer journey into funnel stages. Number two, discover how to expose your buyer to targeted content that fits their funnel stage. Number three, learn the step-by-step storytelling formula for creating posts that encourages engagement from your followers. And number four, learn the foolproof engagement strategy to grow your business effortlessly. Sound good? All right. So who am I? For those of you who don't know me, I'm Cynthia Barnes, founder and CEO of the National Association of Women Sales Professionals. We are laser focused on helping women reach the top 1%. The strategies that I'm sharing with you are those that we use to build NAWSP from 0 members in 2016 to 15,000 members currently. 0 advertising, because when you don't have VC funding, backers, you have to bootstrap and you have to figure out how to do it. They say the necessity is the mother of invention, and that's exactly what we did. So these strategies, I know they work because I've actually implemented them. All right, so for our time today, we're going to cover 4 sections, and if we have time, a bonus section. Number 1, what is the buyer's journey? I will clearly define it so you can walk away and say, now I understand it when I hear it. What is a sales funnel? A lot of you have heard of a sales funnel, but we're going to get granular and specific on exactly what the sales funnel is. Who is my ideal buyer? How do I map the customer journey into funnel stages? Section 2. Section 3, what drives my buyer to the next stage in the funnel? And number 4, social media storytelling. And if we have time, I will talk about Gary Vee's $80 strategy for attracting your target market. All right, so let's get into lesson number 1. What is the buyer's journey? The buyer's journey is a process where individuals become aware of a problem. They consider and evaluate their options before deciding to purchase a product or service. It's to make sure that you reach out to your prospects in the right time and the right way. It's a combination. Lesson number 2, who is my ideal buyer? If you don't know with granularity and specificity, my 2 favorite words, your ideal buyer's demographics, who they are, age, race, gender, location, job title, things like that, things you can measure, and the psychographics, how they think and why they buy, you will miss the boat. The whole idea of knowing both the psychographics and the demographics is to create content that gets them to stop the scroll because they're scrolling all day. Your message, unless you know it, unless you know your target market with granularity and specificity, their psychographics, you will miss the boat. There's an old formula in marketing. It's called M times M equals R. And if you go back to 9th grade algebra, I know they told you would never use it, but here it is again. Anything in an algebraic equation set to 0 means the whole thing is bust. So your first M is your message. What do you say to your target market to make them say, I want to learn more? Your second M in M times M equals R is your media. Where do you put that highly specific message? And the R in M times M equals R is your results. So your message times your media, where you put it, is what equals your results. Unless you know your target market inside, outside, and upside down, you will not be able to create the correct messaging no matter where you put it, Facebook, social media, billboard, and your results will be 0. So as far as which one matters most, I want you to tell me in the chat which one you think matters most, demographics or psychographics. Sarah, what do you think?
I think demographics got to be first. And I'm thinking from a real B2B sales perspective, because something that is a really important demographic would be that person's title, as you mentioned, or like the type of company that they work for, the industry that they work in. And if I can identify the challenges that that persona would experience first, I think that would be more important rather than say we've got somebody who's a CFO who buys in a certain way, and then somebody who's a CMO who buys in a certain way. Even though I know both of their psychographics, the messaging is not necessarily going to pertain to the problem that they have. But that's just me spitballing. I'm not sure.
Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say, have you ever seen the show Scandal with Kerry Washington?
No, but I have heard of it.
Okay, let me give you another example. You said a CFO and a CMO, right? What if there's someone in the company that experiences the pain and problem that your company and your service solves, but they're not the CMO and they're not the CFO? Could it be that if you targeted leadership that has this problem and you create messaging that the person who is responsible for writing the check or the person whose problem you are solving would step up and say, that's for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, because there are a lot of sales leaders, there are a lot of marketing leaders that don't classify themselves as CMO or VP of sales that still can benefit from your product or service, but they don't have the title. So on the one hand, demographics are important because you want to know who you're targeting. I encourage you to think about the pain that you solve, what keeps them up at night, the values that they have, their goals, their objections to the sale, their role in the purchasing process. The psychographics of why they buy is much more important than the demographics of who they are. So yes, you're right to a degree. I want you to expand your thinking, Sarah, so that you think about who is my ideal buyer. And a lot of times people will say, well, we've always done business with the CMO. I encourage you to think about, if I were to give you access to 10 people and I put them all around the boardroom and you gave your best pitch, you've got your red bottoms on, you're doing your pitch and everything is great. They all finish and they say, I want to do business with you. What do those 10 people have in common? When I talk about ideal buyer, try not to think about who you've done business with in the past. Think about who you like to do business with, who loves your product or service, and the psychographics of that person. Then you will have your ideal buyer, and it's much easier. It's like the difference between pulling teeth and having people call you. Does that make sense how I'm explaining that?
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Okay, cool. Are there any questions in the chat that we need to answer before we go on?
No questions, but Ismail did say psychographics. So way to go, Ismail, nailed that one. He said many people buy with emotional triggers instead of their demographic characteristics.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, lesson number 3, what is a sales funnel? A sales funnel is essentially the process that people go through to go from awareness, I don't know who you are, consideration, I know who you are, but now I'm considering it. Do you have what I need? And finally, decision. Now I know who you are, what products or services you have, and now I need to make a decision as to what I'm going to do, which leads them to action. So in this decision-making phase, keep in mind that if your buyer is going from a previous vendor to you, what do you think, and I'll ask you, Sarah, I'll put you in the hot seat. What do you think their major concern is? Top concern?
That they've wasted money on the first option and they're going to have to pay again for the same type of thing.
Close. Give me another one. What would the top concern be? Think ego.
Think what, sorry?
Think about ego.
Oh, that they made a mistake and they've got to admit faults in that first one.
Yes. Or that they go with your product or service and it's not up to snuff and they have to report back to leadership or their peers and eat crow. That buyer's remorse and the fear of making the wrong decision is the number one reason why people don't change vendors. So keeping that in mind, you have to give them enough information to justify if someone comes to them and says, well, why did you choose this new company? And they can ramble off a bullet list of reasons why and be proud of their decision. It also turns them into an evangelizer for them. So when you think about the decision process, make sure you arm them with enough goodies so that they are proud to wear their new Jordans wherever they go, things like that. Okay. All right. So again, a sales funnel is the ultimate selling machine. It's a multi-step, multi-modality process that moves prospective browsers into buyers. The right sales funnel, configured in the proper way, can automate your efforts and help you scale your income on autopilot. Again, there are 3 stages: awareness, consideration, and decision, which lead to action. So how do I map the customer journey into funnel stages? You must remember that if you want your content to convert, it is imperative to align your content to the stages of their journey. But a lot of people say, well, I don't know on LinkedIn, what stage my prospect is in. So how do I know what to post? We're going to get to that. All right. So your personas go through different steps before making a purchase. So in the awareness phase, this is the top of the funnel. The consideration phase is the middle of the funnel, and the decision phase is the bottom of the funnel. You can have 5,000 prospects in the top of the funnel. As you go down to the bottom of the funnel, you will lose people, and that's okay. You want to get down to your decision people as soon as possible, and creating the right content helps with that. So lesson number 5, what drives my buyer to the next phase? Engaging with your buyers, your prospects, is the best way to learn what drives them to the next stage in your funnel. And the best way I know how to do this is to go to your prospect's LinkedIn profile and find out, scroll to the bottom where it says groups and interests, and actually go into their groups and join the groups that they're in. You don't have to say anything once you get there other than a welcome, but you find out what they're talking about. So if you're targeting CMOs, then you go into a marketing group and you listen to what CMOs have to say. You start to learn the verbiage, you start to learn the pain points and what keeps them up at night. Now you can begin to tailor your content to what they're actually saying. Just use their own words. Don't make up anything. Okay. So the first thing you want to do, other than joining those groups, is make a list of questions that your target market is asking themselves. A list of 30 questions. First 5 are going to be easy. Second 10, not so much. By the time you get down to 25 through 30, it's going to be really challenging, like glass of wine challenging. But the last 5 is where the money is. That's where the magic happens, because you had to think back to conversations, think back to what is it that my buyer is plagued with? What's keeping him or her up at night? But that list of 30 questions does 2 things. It helps you get inside the head of your prospect, and also gives you content ideas that if they're asking them these questions to them of themselves, then if you can answer them preemptively in your content, then you win. Then they win and everybody wins. Yeah. You think you could make a list of 30 questions, Sarah?
I think so. It would definitely be tough. You're right. It would take a lot of kind of thinking back, and I could identify those first 5, 6 pretty easily. But yeah, I think there's enough, there are enough places to look that if I worked hard enough, yes, I could find them.
You could. And then it also gives your marketing department fodder for creating blog content, YouTube content, all that good stuff. So the sales department helps the marketing department, who creates the content that helps the marketing department. It's one big circle and everybody wins. So talk with your customers, talk with your buyers, your prospective buyers, your prospects, talk with your sales team. What are you hearing out there in your conversations that people need help with? You will get all the answers that you need, so you don't have to go it alone. Remember, though, that if you have several buyer personas for your product or service, you must create a list of 30 for each persona, because what the CMO is challenged with may not be what the other people are, like the CEO or the chief technology officer. Okay. All right. So now here are 8 questions that your prospect is asking at each stage of the funnel. What is XYZ? Could I be better at XYZ? So Sarah, for your target market, what is the XYZ in this first question? What is XYZ? What do you think that they would be asking?
I'm not actually sure what the sort of context should be for that particular question. Is that them asking what is the best way to do something, or can you give me a little bit more there?
Let's say that you are selling LinkedIn strategies. Mm-hmm. So if you're selling LinkedIn strategies and someone would say, what exactly is social selling?
Right. Okay. I see.
Could I be better at social selling?
Okay.
So in your instance, what exactly would your target market ask in the first one?
So they might say, what is outbound sales, or what is, personalized prospecting, or something
Yes.
of that to that effect.
Yes. And then they would ask, could I be better at outbound prospecting?
Got it.
So if they're asking what exactly is outbound prospecting, your goal would be to create a post on LinkedIn that says, I was talking with a prospect the other day, to remain nameless, and they were asking me exactly what is outbound prospecting. Then you use all 1,300 characters in your post to explain with bullets what is outbound prospecting. So now, if I'm a CMO or if I am your target audience, I don't even have to be connected to you, but I see this post and you are giving me valuable information. Oh, well, I didn't know that about the outbound prospecting. Wow, Sarah knows her stuff. I think I'm going to go ahead and follow her because she's answering questions that I didn't even ask of her. She is a subject matter expert, a thought leader. She's preemptively answering my questions. You see how that works?
Yeah.
Yes. Could I be better at outbound prospecting? Answer that in a post. That's your top of your funnel.
Mhm.
Then for the middle of the funnel, the consideration phase, what are best practices on outbound prospecting? You could create a whole series on tips and tricks. Tip number 538 on outbound prospecting. Do this. How do others outbound prospect? Now is the time for you to talk about industry best practices. What we have learned with our company is that this is a best practice, and here's why. Then what are solutions? You want to talk about the solutions that your company offers, but sell the sizzle, not the steak, right? Because
Okay.
I can get a whole bunch of features. I want benefits. And the benefit is do this so that you can. Does that make sense, Sarah?
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Good. Do we have any questions before I go on?
It does not look like it, but if you guys do have any questions, remember that you can just jot them in the chat, but I'm sure everyone's just so enthralled and taking diligent notes.
Okay, great. And then lastly is the bottom of the funnel. How does your product or service at Predictable Revenue solve my problem? Tell me. Here at Predictable Revenue, we solve your outbound prospecting by doing this, this, and this. How does it compare with alternatives? Be careful not to throw anyone under the bus. Do not badmouth your competition because that only makes you look badly.
Mhm.
And then who did it work for? Give me some testimonials. Put in quotes. So and so said this. Make sure you ask their permission before you tag them on it. Or if they don't want to be tagged, say, well, can I use your quote without your name? But those actual quotes from your customers are gold. And always ask your customers, are you happy with our service? What can we do better? And then use the quote, ask their permission, but always be asking for quotes and recommendations. Okay? All
Yep.
right. All right. So we did that. We did that. Always remember, and there's a graphic of forget-me-nots behind this, there's a customer that you're writing content for, and you want this customer to take an action because of the content you are creating. Lesson number 6, social media storytelling. Social media storytelling is essentially the process of using social media platforms to tell stories about your brand, products or service, or whatever you want to captivate your audience. It enables you to expose your brand to your audience and tell them what your brand is all about. So the best way to create a post is to use the Pixar formula from Walt Disney. And if you think about Disney princess stories, they always start with once upon a time in a land far, far away, there was a little girl who blah, 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 blah. And every day she woke up to encounter this. One day she did this. And because of that, this happened. And because of that, this happened. And because of that, this happened. Until finally, and ever since then, blah, blah, blah. It is gold. And when you incorporate this version or a version with your personality in your LinkedIn posts, people eat it up. They do. They do. And
Awesome.
I didn't make this up. This is from Pixar, Disney's Pixar, but I'm going to give you an example of my version of it. And I think I showed this on the last one, but this post here, 15 years ago, I lost everything: my home, my car, my beloved pets. The pain, anger, and shame I felt were unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I hit rock bottom. So this is a vulnerable, heartfelt post that I put on LinkedIn. And then I went on to say that today, here's where I stand. And here's some accolades. And then I share my failures and success for a reason. Remember that LinkedIn is about building relationships. I'm an extremely private person. Every so often, I let down my guard and I'm transparent to a point. And when I am, I hit pay dirt. So there's some call to action down here. Tip number 1, tip number 2, tip number 3, and an ask. So within a month, I had 346 responses, 71 comments, and 21,749 views of my post. That enabled me to go to those 346 people and reach out and say, thank you for responding to my post. Now, those second and third degree connections, I now connect with, and I can start a conversation because they reached out to me. So I attracted my target market. I didn't have to go out and solicit them for anything, but that's 346 people that liked it, 71 people that commented on it. And now I can start those, and I have a reason to engage. Do you see how easy that is? And all you've got to do is put out information. See, in here in tip number 1, I'm advertising my LinkedIn Live series. Tip number 2, I'm advertising NAWSP. I didn't put a link to NAWSP. I just said, you know what, check it out. Don't sell, engage. Engage. Any questions on that?
We had one from Sonair who asked, will a fully optimized attracting LinkedIn profile make it more easy for me if I just decide to cold message a potential prospect?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would not cold reach out to anybody, and I'm going to explain why in the next section. And think about when someone cold reaches to you, it feels kind of intrusive and slimy. Even though we are sellers, I still think that there's a better way because I've done the cold outreach. I have Sales Navigator and I have InMail, and it is just impersonal. And in this age where we're desperate for connection, we have an opportunity to connect rather than sell. So I don't use my InMails anymore. I don't reach out and connect with someone without a previous relationship. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But that's an excellent point. I would not cold outreach to anybody. No matter what the experts say, there's a better way. Okay. All right. So lesson number 7, excuse me. Gary Vaynerchuk has this fantastic way of reaching out to people. And he actually doesn't reach out to sell, he reaches out to engage. So the $1.80 strategy to grow your sales is the best use of 3 hours I have ever seen. Okay. So step number 1 is to create a list of 90 prospective buyers. You can do it in Sales Navigator. You can go in to regular LinkedIn if you don't have the Sales Navigator and look and bookmark their profile and create 90. Number 2, you leave an insightful comment, your 2 cents, on their most popular post. Remember, if you leave a comment, it has to be insightful. It can't just say, great post, Gary. It's got to be insightful, at least 6 words long so that you can activate the algorithm. And your goal is to be the most relevant post. So you want other people who come to that post to like it and comment on it as well. That's how you get the awareness and you get people into the top of your funnel, because now they're going to go back to your fully optimized profile and connect with you. In step number 3, you continue to like, comment, and engage. That is attracting your ideal buyer instead of attacking them by sending them a cold sales email or in mail. Okay. So people say, what does this do? Let's say that you're my prospect, Sarah, and we don't know each other. I have two options. I can send you a connection request and I can say, hey, I'd love to connect with you. And then I can send you some follow-up in mails or emails, and I can try to get an appointment. How do you think that's going to go over?
Not super well.
Not super well, no. But let's say that I not connected with you, I follow you, and I comment maybe once a week on yours. By the time I reach out to connect with you, because I've left these insightful comments, you are more likely to connect with me because I've given you something. And if you've ever gone to, do you have Sam's Club or Costco where you are?
Yes, Costco.
Okay,
Yeah,
remember what's that?
Costco.
Okay, Costco. Yes. Costco is famous for pre-COVID. You would walk down the aisles and there would be a food, some kind of food. And you take a sample of it and you say, okay, so when the young lady says, you can find this over in the freezer section, 2 doors down on your right-hand side, you are more likely to get that item if you like it because someone has given you something. Another analogy is there was a study done where this young man went to the phone book and he sent out 100 Christmas cards, random people in the phone book when they had phone books. And then he turned around and received 50 back. The best way to be influential is to give before you receive. When we're on social media, we post things and then we go back every 2 to 3 minutes to see how many likes and comments we have. It's human nature. So you are edifying your prospect by commenting, liking, and sharing their content. You have to give something before you go and ask to connect. They are more likely to connect with you and more likely to receive what it is that you are offering. That is a much more effective way and better use of your time than to send out random connection requests.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And not only are you providing that value, but they've also seen you a couple of times and they may kind of recognize you when they see that, and it becomes warm rather than truly cold.
Yes. And if everything goes right, they're asking you to connect because they've gone to your optimized profile. They've seen your posts and they say, she knows what she's talking about and she is in my head.
Interesting.
Yes. That's the way it works. We've got to use psychology to our benefit. And it also teaches the LinkedIn algorithm that if I'm commenting on Sarah's post, LinkedIn says Cynthia and Sarah must want to see each other's posts in their feed. So now I'm teaching the algorithm to put my content in your feed, Sarah.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a tough nut to crack, is figuring out how to get the algorithm to actually show your posts. Because even if you write these amazing posts that are sort of optimized, so tough to get people to engage with them kind of that first time to get the ball rolling and the domino effect going.
Yes. Yes. If you don't tweak the algorithm or hack the algorithm, only 25% of your connections will see your posts. So if you have 500 people, then only 100 of them are going to see your post anyway. Yeah, got to tweak it. Got to tweak it. All right. Any questions before we go on?
We did have one question here from Ismail asking, is there any ratio of tagged versus keywords that you should follow within a LinkedIn post?
I don't put keywords in my LinkedIn post. I put hashtags on the bottom. But as far as SEO optimizing my LinkedIn post, they are optimized because I'm talking about the issues relevant to my target market. So if you are creating and crafting content for your target market, then it will automatically be optimized. But remember, the goal is to develop a relationship, not necessarily to get the engagement. The engagement is nice, but the relationship is better. Yeah, you want to be relatable and get that engagement. Yeah. Any other questions?
I think we're good for now. Yeah, let's move on.
Very good. Very good. So now I'd like to ask questions. I do have some next steps. Okay. Create a list of top questions your ideal buyer would ask according to the stage: awareness, consideration, and decision. So if we go back to the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, those 8 questions, try to find 5 questions for each of the 8. Okay. You should post daily, Monday through Friday. And remember that consistency builds trust. Develop a list of 90 prospects and save their profiles. I would probably create a list of 500, because not everybody's going to post every day. And you don't want to go, I would never go to Sarah's post or Sarah's feed and comment every single day. That's almost stalkerish. However, 2 to 3 times a week, maybe even 2 times a week, that's enough for someone to say, ah, okay, I know who Sarah is. But every single day, no, not so much, not so much. And engage with those 90 prospects using the $80 strategy, Gary V's $80 strategy. All right. So this is an action plan that I have my members do. So I want you to think about and write down on a piece of paper, maybe not now, but as you review this information, what one thing are you going to implement? When and where are you going to implement it? And what do you expect the outcome to be? And if we were live, I would have everyone listed in the chat. But for now, I want to answer your question, Sarah, about the content that we've covered.
Okay. What did I have? There was something that I was thinking about when we were covering. Oh yeah. So when we're looking at the types of things that we post for the different stages of that funnel, to kind of, yeah, just to clarify what those different types of posts are. So that very first type of post is something about sort of the solution that you solve as a whole, not specifically your company, not specifically what you're going to provide them, but it's sort of, as we mentioned, it's like outbound sales. It's like a particular focus or strategy or something like that that my business pertains to, but kind of on a large scale.
Yes.
And then the next step down was more solutions oriented, but not my solution specifically. It was more like tips, tricks, value, solutions. Yes. And then finally, when you're down to the bottom of the funnel, that's when you position yourself as the provider of that solution.
Yes. So for example, I posted this morning, and I'll have you take a look at it. It's just getting some traction now. We did Mentor Mondays yesterday, and I'm not selling a thing in this, but I gave a shout out to all the women that appeared on Mentor Monday, and I thanked them, had a brief overview of what we covered, and have 4 points of thank you. And I ended it with thank you for continuing to rise up and reach back. Someone who is a woman in sales who's looking for mentorship or a community will see this and say, I want that. I'm not selling anything. In fact, there's no links in here for you to sign up. There's one down in the comments that says join us Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Click here to RSVP. But this is part of the decision-making process, the decision-making part of who else has done this, who has benefited. So when I tag the people the women that came, they commented down here. When they comment, their followers see the comment as well. Yeah. So again, it's about creating value. Thank you for joining us. And I got as much as I gave in yesterday's Mentor Mondays. And there's probably 1,300 characters in there. Long posts perform better.
Interesting.
Always long posts.
Do you have any tips around, you know how LinkedIn will just show you a preview of a post and you've got to click the see more?
Yes.
What's your tip for creating that hook in those first couple of sentences to get the people to click?
I put a lot of thought into that, and I want to make sure that I get something that is a headline. Remember, we talked about your title on LinkedIn, how your title is not your job description.
Yeah.
So think of a headline that gets someone to read more. So on mine, the top headline is "A closed fist can't receive." And people say, okay, I want to read more about that. the previous post that I showed 15 years ago, I lost everything. And I think it's truncated or shortened to 120 characters. So it's about the size of half a tweet. So make sure that it's engaging and it makes people want to read more. That's a good question.
Okay, interesting. So either kind of slightly vague, so people are like, "Ooh, what is this post actually about?" Or the first half of the sentence, you can tell that it's going somewhere exciting, but you can't
Yes.
hear where it's gone. So let's
Yes.
click and read the rest.
Yes. So when we're talking about mentorship, the whole post and the theme was that you can't receive anything if you don't give something. If I were talking about marketing or outbound strategies, I would say I would post a question
Mhm.
or like a fact. Like I'm posting one tomorrow that says fact: 985,000 women have lost their jobs in September 2020 due to COVID. So for the 50% of NAWSP members who are looking for a job, that's going to resonate. So my target market is going to say, you know what? I lost my job. What's Cynthia got to say about this?
Mhm.
Yeah. It's all about your target market and what they find relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is great stuff. Any of you guys have any other specific questions that came up during or even you can drop in the chat that little question that Cynthia had at the end of what is the one thing that you're going to take away and implement? When are you going to do it? And what do you think is going to happen? Are you going to start posting every day? Are you going to go out and try and make this list of 30 questions for one specific title that you're targeting? What are you guys going to take away and do first, so that then you can tell us next week on the next session that you've done it and what's come of it so far? I think that would be super
Yes.
interesting.
Someone did ask why $1.80. If you take your 90 comments and leave your 2 cents, which is kind of like your opinion, that's what we call it. Leaving your 2 cents or your opinion on their post, the 90 times the 2 cents is the $1.80. That's how we get that.
Nice.
Yeah. Someone asked a ratio of tag to keywords. I think we covered that, didn't we?
I think we did. That's right. Yeah. It
Yes.
was more around the hashtags will help you a little bit, but you're sort of already keyword optimized
Mhm.
because you're writing for a very specific title about a very specific problem.
And you can also search in LinkedIn for um, your hashtags and find other people
Mhm.
who are hashtagging what you're talking about. So if I wanted to go for women in sales, I would search for women in sales and see all the people that are talking about women in sales and then go and comment on theirs, on their posts.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you can just search and follow specific hashtags, and then anyone who posts within a hashtag, it'll pop up for you,
Mhm.
and vice versa if they're following that hashtag. I believe you can even see hashtags based on their following or how many followers a hashtag has. So
Yes.
makes sense then that you would want a hashtag for something that is has a large follower base.
Yes.
Of course, if it's within the right wheelhouse.
Yes, exactly. One thing I wanted to mention, and I got a sense of this, that what if your target market is not active on LinkedIn? And for like a doctor or a healthcare professional, they may not be. There's nothing wrong with creating a highly relevant, valuable post and then dropping a question in the comments and say, Dr. So and so, you're a leader in this field and I'd love your thoughts. They will get a notification, an email, so and so mentioned you in their comments, and they will then see the post. So there's workarounds. Even if your target market is not active, you can still tag them. Don't do it every day because that's annoying. But you can still tag them and say, there are some thought leaders in this industry that I would love your opinion. And you drop 5 to 7 names.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And something else you mentioned to that point, Cynthia, on the last session was that a really optimized profile can have other people selling on your behalf. So say Dr. I don't know, Steinberg, who is a friend of the CFO who follows you or who has seen your post, and because it's popped up because a bunch of their followers, whatever, they see your post, they click on your profile and see that you have this really great profile that's selling for you and explains how you help solve X problem in the healthcare industry. He goes like, oh, I'm having dinner with my friend Bob Steinberg. Make sure to
Yes.
mention Ismail when I see him.
Yes. Yes. And think about the impact of having a fully optimized profile, creating content that moves them through the awareness, consideration, and decision-making phase. You don't need to sell a thing. Your LinkedIn activity is influencing your decision makers to buy. In this age where everyone is connecting, then selling, you separate yourself and you rise to the top. The cream always rises to the top. And that's exactly what we want to do. We do not want to be salesy. It's really annoying. It'll get you unfriended, unconnected, disconnected, whatever they want to call it, and possibly blocked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I do want to go back to that idea you had around never cold prospecting, but rather being able to reach out to those people who have engaged in a
Yes.
post that you've made. So they've reacted or they've commented.
Mhm.
Maybe if Veronica or Mero, you guys could share the link in the chat to the podcast that we did on turning LinkedIn engagement into prospects. We've got a kind of clear way to make that list and then reach out to them in a really personalized way, using this reaction or this comment that they've left as the trigger, because as you mentioned, then it's not cold, it's warm. There's something that exists there.
Right.
The original episode of the blog is about actually using other people's posts. So for instance, I might go onto your post, Cynthia, and see if I also, I don't know, had solutions in your space and I saw women commenting and saying, I need X, this
Yes.
is relevant because of Y, I might reach out to them and say, hey, I saw your comment on Cynthia's post. But works whether it's your post or whether it's someone else's post. So
Sure.
That's a good way to, it's a good strategy there for kind of capitalizing on those reactions and those comments if you do want to send those kind of outbound messages.
Yes. There's a woman that I follow, and she's always saying, I am connected to the best recruiters in the world. If you're looking for a job, then leave a comment below. And I love going through her 200, 500 different comments and connecting with those women saying, hey, we're hosting a job fair for women in sales. I'd love to invite you to it. So I have a reason to reach out. I'm giving, not asking for anything. Always remember to give before you ask. Always remember to give before you ask. Always, always, always. That's beautiful. If you could post that, Veronica, that would be great.
Awesome. We have Mark says, don't post to post, post to engage. Great takeaway. And then so Nair, do you suggest creating content which contains parts or examples from case studies?
If the case study is yours, there are tons of people that go and they post and they say, here's a Forbes article, go read the Forbes article. And I think I mentioned this last time. If you post the Forbes article, yes, there's credibility in Forbes, but whose credibility are you trying to bolster? So create your own content, then lead back to your own blog that establishes you as the thought leader. But if you have parts of a case study, then by all means, that the case study that you've done, by all means, do that.
Awesome.
As long as it leads back to the relevance to your prospect.
Awesome. It's like that testimonial piece that you mentioned. If you've got quotes from your own clients that are the same title as the people or same problems as the people you're reaching out to, that's great. If you've got, quotes from or exact numbers or whatever you've done to solve the problem for this case study client.
Yes.
Probably plenty of snippets in there that fall into that. That's the final stage of the funnel, right? When you're mentioning who else has benefited, how they've benefited, all of that.
And I would even go so far as to get a new customer and I would ask Mr. Prospect or Miss Prospect, why did you choose us? They will tell you, I chose you because of this. And you say, thank you so much. Can I quote you on LinkedIn? And because they're so thrilled, they're going to say yes. And that's a post. Congratulations and thank you to our newest partner, so-and-so. Here's why they chose us. I'm excited to deliver content, or I'm just excited to deliver solutions to help them. Here's their problem, here's their solution, and that's it. Thank you so much. I wanted to give a kudos out to our latest partner.
Awesome.
Everybody feels good after that.
Well, in case you guys have any other questions, keep thinking. And why don't we take this time, Cynthia, to chat about what we'll be talking about on the next and final episode in our 3-part series.
Yes, we will be talking about how to put it all together, because we've talked about the LinkedIn profile, we've talked about the content strategies. Now we're going to talk about what a typical day looks like in fully using LinkedIn to socially sell for you. And I say social selling because that's really what we're doing, but we're not actually going out and doing people's, or doing like invitations and selling that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I devote 3 hours a day to LinkedIn. I do my $1.80 strategy. I post every single day. I engage, and that is the strategy. And we'll talk about the discipline it takes to actually make it work.
Awesome. Well, very exciting. And again, if you guys haven't watched that first episode, make sure to do that. It's up on the YouTube, and there is a link further up in the chat if you want to click on it and watch it there. Thank you so much to all of you who did attend this one today. There were quite a few more people today who registered versus the first one. So you guys are telling your friends and you're learning lots, and that's really great to hear. And remember that you can always reach out to me or drop a comment even once the live stream is finished to let us know, did you optimize your profile? What do you think? What did you take away from today? What are those steps that you're going to go away and take action on right away? What do you think the results are going to be? Because that's all stuff that we can touch on in the final episode.
And I'm also going to, if we have time, I will give you all of the books and the resources that I have acquired over the last 4 years of being LinkedIn for Black Belt certified, and everything that I've used that works, because I've discarded a lot that doesn't work, but I will give you my exact game plan of LinkedIn content strategies.
Sounds great. Awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Cynthia, for coming on and sharing all of this with us again. I can't wait for next week.
Yes, me too. Me too.
And thank you, all of you who watched and engaged and commented. We do this for you, and we couldn't do it without you. And so, yeah, looking forward to seeing all of you on next week's edition as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for everyone that gave your attention and your engagement. Please follow me on LinkedIn. I'm Cynthia Barnes on LinkedIn, and you'll see my smile in a blue dress, and I can't wait to engage with you.